Hello Internet, we both know why you're here. This is kind of a classy zombie look, and we're doing a couple of different things using cotton balls in latex, as well as scar wax and alcohol activated paints. First thing we're gonna do is take some mask latex. This is Monster Maker's mask latex in RD407. And I took one of the cotton balls, and this is like a jumbo cotton ball, and I rolled it up in there. It could be a little bit difficult to get really a smooth surface, so then I put it onto a Q-tip and I continued to smooth all of that out with my finger. Then to let it have some place to sit, I got like a chunk of clay and I stuck the Q-tip in that. Don't dry the cotton ball just yet because there's a couple of things that we got to put on it. I then just got like a scrap of paper and I used a pencil to try to draw a perfect circle. I then used a detail brush and alcohol paints from the Skin Illustrator Flesh Tone palette to try to paint a replica of my iris. I had a mirror set up and I kept just glancing at it, just trying to get the same colors as my eyes. I noticed I had like browns and some reds closer to the center, and I had a lighter brown and like a green towards like the outer edge of my iris. It's kind of an interesting experience. So I put all of those on. I also noticed that irises, you know, they have like those lines that are all like kind of pointed towards the pupil. So I made sure with my colors that there's like a bunch of lines that are just kind of facing inwards to try to hopefully make it look a little bit more realistic. When I got around to doing the pupil, that is just black body paint. That is Mehron Paradise paints in black. I then used a craft knife to very carefully cut out my iris, and I got like our little eyeball on a stick, and this is why we needed the latex to remain wet, is because then we're going to very carefully place that iris on top of the eyeball, and just I'm using like a little like a sculpting tool to kind of push the edges in. As the paper gets like a little bit wet from the latex, it's going to kind of, you know, bend and fold and cling onto the latex more readily. Then I took some clear nail polish and I made sure I had some Q-tips if like I dumped like way too much on. I used like, and this is like cheapo nail polish, I actually got this from Dollar Tree, and I wanted to make sure that the iris had like a glossy tone to it. So I completely covered the iris. I made sure that the edges were also covered. This kind of helps to blend in the paper into the rest of the eyeball. Once I had that done, then I used a blow dryer to make sure that all of the outer layer was completely dry, so then we could proceed kind of with, you know, some somewhat like bloodshot looking eye lines. This is also from the Skin Illustrator palette. This is Rose Adjuster. Something that I personally like to do with alcohol paints is I like to go on a little bit too heavy and then later on go in with a really like a just plain alcohol. So like you start too strong and then you bring in like alcohol again and then you lighten it up. I don't do this for everything with alcohol paints, but just like in something like this, like I find it a bit more satisfying visually to start out strong and then take away versus just building up in layers, which is what you would typically do with alcohol paints. Once I had my veins how I like them, then I whipped out the clear nail polish again, and I tried to coat the entire thing so the whole thing looks kind of shiny. After that dried, then I used our little craft knife again, and I cut it away from the Q-tip. And then we're gonna get out the mask latex again, and we're going to unroll another jumbo cotton ball. And this is going to be our optic nerve. It's pretty simple. I just used like a sculpting tool and just kind of sloppily just completely covered this piece of cotton ball. Once I had it completely soaked so that I knew I would have a smooth, less absorbent surface to paint onto later, then I kind of shaped it so it's like a little bit curled, because like whatever position you leave this in and whatever it dries in, it's gonna stay that way once the latex is dry. And I basically used Rose Adjuster all along this thing, just in varying amounts. I realized my detail brush wasn't really getting the job done, so I kind of got this eyeshadow brush to really intensify it. And there's something about using a long strand of cotton ball and then, you know, putting latex on top of it and then covering it with alcohol paints. It really looks fleshy, especially if you can get it nice and shiny, and it's a little disturbing to see in person. So then I doodled out exactly what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted like an outstretched face, almost looking like Two-Face, and I wanted a bow tie. You're gonna notice a little bit later like there's additional markings on me that I placed that I actually ended up deciding not to use, but we're just really going to use the bow tie in the face. So this is actually mask latex that's a little bit watered down because I didn't want it to be as thick, because now that it was going to be on my face, I wanted to be able to conceal my edge better. So this is just a makeup wedge and some watered down mask latex, and again that's the Monster Maker RD407, and that's a chunk of unrolled and torn apart cotton ball. And we're just gonna cover this entire thing in latex. I made sure also that there is like a little bit of latex on my mouth and around my mouth, just so that this really looked connected. I got that to dry using a blow dryer, and then I used one of my favorite things in the whole wide world, which is the Mehron Makeup Setting Powder. I have flown through so many containers of this stuff because it is just magic in a container. I use it for basically everything. And on a fluffy blush brush, I just preferred to kind of powder off all of my latex. We're powdering off the latex because we're going to cut into this, and latex loves to stick to itself. So this is going to prevent, like once we cut it, any flaps that appear or anything isn't going to stick to itself. So now we're going to very carefully use a small set of scissors to kind of cut our mouth right there. The fake mouth, obviously not a real mouth. You might need to use like I did, like the butt of a brush to kind of make sure there's room in there to cut, and we're gonna cut out like a whole chunk in there to make sure there's plenty of room for our fake teeth. So now we're just using some ProsAide on a Q-tip, and I'm just gonna cover the entire inside of that with ProsAide because it's gonna hold on to our teeth for us. And now we're using some scar wax. This is Mehron Synwax, but nose and scar wax would work as well. It's generally the same thing. You get some Vaseline and you have your scar wax, and you coat your fingertips with the Vaseline, and you get some of the scar wax out of the container, and you knead the scar wax in your fingers until it becomes warm and moldable, and you could shape it however you want. And I kind of got it into this just generic tooth shape, and then I just very carefully stuck it right inside of our new like kind of fake mouth. And I did that for a row of top teeth and a row of bottom teeth. After we did that, I used the shade Rice Paper in the Skin Illustrator Flesh Tone palette. This is the lightest color in the Flesh Tone palette, and I just covered the tops of the teeth with those just because they were looking kind of fake and waxy. I then painted my entire face white. This is Mehron Paradise Paints in white, as well as painting my neck end around that bow tie. Then I used the Cocoa Contour palette, I believe it's by Too Faced, and I just gave myself some like really deep contouring just so my face wouldn't be as flat. I want to make sure it looks, you know, nice and three-dimensional. I also did some light contouring around my nose and around my forehead. This is also where I realized that I had meant to do something with my nose because my nose was going to be very boring, so then I removed some of the paint from my nose just using a dish rag and some water. And then I coated my nose with ProsAide, and we whipped out the scar wax again. And this time I made like little worms to go kind of in this triangle shape. And I used my sculpting tool that we used a bit earlier on the eye. I used that to smooth down the edges here. I put ProsAide down because I wanted to be able to emote without worrying about the scar wax just raising up. I know that there is, I think it's called Fixative A that you can use for like nose and scar wax, but I don't have that, so we're just using some ProsAide. And then I painted my nose black, which I now realize just kind of looks like a puppy nose, but you know what, I still like it. So then I opened up the Skin Illustrator palette again, and I kind of fiddled with some different colors just so that the teeth weren't so flat looking. So there's like a little bit of Rose Adjuster, and then I go in with this deep brown in between the teeth called Cedar Brown. We're going to top off the teeth again with Rice Paper, so they still look like teeth again, but now we have that cedar brown in between the teeth to kind of intensify like where the borders of each tooth are instead of it just being a mass of wax. I thought the teeth looked a little bit too matte, so then I used, again, like that kind of cheapo clear nail polish, and I just gave them a good coat. Make sure you don't like dump this stuff onto yourself. You do not want to just put nail polish right onto your face. Do not do that, that will hurt. So I was just kind of lightly coating it over the scar wax. I then used some like really watered down cedar brown to try to add some more contouring around the mouth. So then I whipped out this gray eyeshadow. This is from the Too Faced matte palette, and I was trying to basically cover almost all the way up to my brow bone basically, just so we have a little bit more going on. I then used just like a marker eyeliner to give myself a really big wing because we're going to have like a fake eye on the left side, my left side. Because pretty much we're going to have like a fake eye going on with the other eye, so I wanted some like distinct features with the eye makeup that we could imitate with the fake eye that would make it more obvious that the fake eye is supposed to look like an eye. I applied some ProsAide with a Q-tip onto my eye and just put on some cotton right on top of it. This is gonna give our fake eye a base. And then, you guessed it, there's more latex! It's latex on a Q-tip this time, and I'm basically just trying to connect it to the rest of my skin, so we have kind of a more of a smooth transition. Don't worry about the eyebrow, we're gonna put on a brand new eyebrow. Once I had that entire thing covered, then I felt comfortable putting our fake eyeball on. And once I put the eyeball on top of it, there is a thinner strip, and this is going to be our fake eyelid. And since it's made of just cotton and latex, it is so nice and lightweight, it just immediately stuck on. I covered the our new eyelid with some latex, and after I put like a layer of latex on top of that, then I took my Q-tip and kind of my sculpting tool as well to like kind of raise up our fake eyelid a little bit, just so that I would have an opportunity with like a paint job to like add some additional depth, so it just looks like, you know, your left eye is closed. I just used Mehron Paradise paints in black and my favorite detail brush. This is the Kryolan #1 Tory brush, and it is my favorite detail brush in the whole wide world. I will link to it, but I wish I had 20 of these. They're just the absolute best. And I just used that black paint all around my lips. I wanted my, what's it called? I wanted my Cupid's bow. I wanted like the top peaks of my lips to be really sharp. I loved the idea of having like really angular, almost severe, like, you know, classy makeup. So also like the corner of my mouth I wanted to be sharp, and I wanted those two peaks to be sharp. And as it stretches along to like that side smile, I wanted the lips to like really thin out. Then I used a very thin angled brush and some more black paint, and this is another area where I wanted it to be super angular, and I just did like these really intense, kind of thin, kind of sharp eyebrows. And then there's yet another point, and this one is like on the inner corner. I've seen so many of my favorite makeup artists do like this really sharp inner corner, and I've always really loved it. And I always wanted an excuse to do it myself. And there is yet again some more, this is kind of like some, you know, watered down black paint to further bring out like, you know, the creases for the smile. I decided I wanted some shine onto our lips, so this is just some white paint onto a detail brush, and I just kind of swiped it all along there to give it some extra voom. I covered our fake eye up with some white paint, and this is just Mehron Paradise paints in white. And then here's the Mehron Loose setting powder again, and I just powdered the entire thing to hopefully give it more of the same surface of my real eyeball, and hopefully make it a little bit more cooperative when we're about to do what we're about to do to it. And then I basically did the same eye makeup job as much as I could onto our fake eye. So it's the same color, kind of gray eyeshadow. There's like the sharp angular eyebrow, and then there's the wing on the outside and on the inside. I wish that I had thought to get some fake lashes, because I feel like just a nice thin set of fake eyelashes really would have helped this too. So using a small brush, now we're taking care of that bow tie, and this is just Mehron Paradise paints in red, and then a smaller detail brush in black to outline that out and give some kind of basic wrinkles. And then went in with a detail brush in white, and I outlined it, and I tried to kind of place and then tap out and soften out the raised parts of the bow tie to give it a bit more depth. And then I used kind of a larger angled brush to start adding some shadow using gray eyeshadow, and then I used a detail brush with like some much darker gray eyeshadow to kind of deepen the middle under parts of the bow tie. And that's it. This has been PTBarpun for HalloweenMakeup.com. Whatever day it is that you're seeing this, I hope you're having a good one, and I will see you the next time I do video stuff. Bye.